gone up a little bit. Okay, let's see. Oh, food and beverages. You want to bring anything back on the bus to eat or drink? Well, we're not sure who has that now. It used to belong to Security Pacific Bank, which got bought out by B of A, which I'm not sure what's going on from there. Off to the right up there, if we were to exit the freeway, is where Los Angeles got its start. Like September 1781, 44 people comprising 11 families led by a man named Captain Felipe de Neve founded a little place called El Pueblo de Nuestra Señora la Reina de Los Angeles, the village of our momentarily. You get a good look at the LA City Hall. Look for a guy in blue tights with a red that is used. This 4-level interchange we're about to go over is the one for Los Angeles. They say something. If you saw a movie called Falling Down with Michael Douglas, those cars that are coming in from the right, that was the portion of the interchange used for the opening traffic jam there. You can take a fast look through the trees off to your right, past the fountains, all the way across. There's kind of a lagoon area on the far side of the lake. For years we thought, just a second, they're calling me. Okay. That's a vine. Anybody know why it's such a famous intersection? What it's famous for? Actually, it's only famous for being basically the mythical center of Hollywood. During the 20s and 30s, radio stations would send their announcers down here with a live microphone feed so they could say that they were broadcasting live from Hollywood and Vine. Used to have a Brown Derby restaurant right here on the corner. Now you can get your body pierced there. In the early days of the Hollywood movie industry, the stars would be under contract to the studio, which was probably good for them because then they knew they were going to be making some pictures. But also, there were some things in those contracts that I can't quite see the stars agreeing with today. For one, they had to live in Hollywood. Second of all, and that was the idea, they wanted to generate excitement. We still get some film crews down here periodically. You saw Twins with Arnold Schwarzenegger up here on the left. Playmates, that's where he was standing when that guy on the motorcycle tried stealing his suitcase. Hollywood isn't quite what a lot of people think it is. And there is a move afoot to revitalize it a bit. They are doing some work. They've got a long ways to go yet. Hollywood and Highland is one of the major projects that has been completed. Over here on the left, if you've seen the ads for Fredericks of Hollywood, yes, it really does exist. There is Fredericks of Hollywood on your left. A place where you can go to spend more money for less. Musso and Frank Grill, they've still got the sign up there, but the restaurant's been closed for a few years. This was the oldest restaurant in Hollywood, but it's closed the other. A lot of theaters down here. They were very fancy in the heyday. One of the older ones up here on the left, the Egyptian Theater, was one of Sid Grauman's. These guys also built the Chinese theater. That was going to be a Spanish theme, and then they discovered King Tut's tomb, so they did a quick change to an Egyptian theme. Over there, I think the premiere there was Robin Hood with Douglas Fairbanks. Oh, somebody let their meter run out. Put the money in now, but you still got the ticket. The Hollywood and Highland, they put in a whole new theater complex here. Where the Kodak Theater is, if you watch the Oscars, this is where they come from. We'll be stopping down here. Coming up on the left, the Egyptian Theater is owned by the Disney Corporation. They bought it several years ago and refurbished it, and they use it for premiering Disney movies. Very nice inside. I've been in there once. Very, very nice inside. And here's your Kodak Theater complex, right next to the Chinese Theater. They are calling it Grauman's Chinese Theater again. Sid Grauman built it, then ended up having to sell it. Ted Mann of the Mann's Theater chain bought it, so it was called Mann's Chinese Theater for a long time, but it's back to being Grauman's Chinese. This is where you get the footprints, hand prints, leg prints, nose prints, hoof prints, fist prints, lip prints, paw prints, etc. In there. We'll be stopping up here. If you really like Hollywood history, over here on our left, the Roosevelt Hotel. First Academy Awards were produced there in the Blossom Room. If you heard of a man called Ralph Edwards who did a show called This Is Your Life, those were done from
John. Oh my gosh, I can't do it. Let's see. Gloria. See, Michael would know more of these. Casey Kasem. Oh, Bruce Lee. Gotta wait for my 6 seconds to go by. Who's Lefty Frizzle?
Represent, that's music.
Oh, okay.
This is like a director.
Oh,
Sharon Stone.
who's that? You gotta tell me who some of these people are. I don't know who.
You know Sharon Stone.
Batman and Superman, Eddie Murphy. This is too funny.
Giant. Elizabeth Taylor.
Fine, John.
There's Shirley Temple.
Yeah.
I took a picture of that.
Well, I'm doing snapshots of these because to me that's easier. They're still, you'll be able to see them better. So just, oh, John Travolta. John Wayne.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Hello. How are you? Good. Would you like to have a tour with us?
I know what you guys want to do. You want to get your hands and feet put in the Grumman chow mein, right? Come on, raise your hand. That's what we're going to be doing.
Where?
Okay, so who do you think in the world are not?
Gotta wait 5 seconds to do the next one.
Want to go on a tour with us?
Oh, Jimmy Durante. Charlie McCarthy. Esther Williams, that's my swimming pool. Now who else did Karen said somebody? Betty Davis.
Mel Gibson.
Okay, where? Right here?
Who?
Mel Gibson. Karen's reading and I'm no.
All of them are all up in that far corner.
Did you get pictures?
Tom Hanks and Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson.
You have to do this one for Jeff.
Who's this? Oh. Okay. So see if I can get. I have to do it in sections. It won't all fit in one. Oh well, we'll see if they figure it out. Takes pictures really quick. Okay, now what do we? Oh, here she's standing on Billy Crystal. Jack Nicholson. Think of all the people. I don't know many of these people.
They're on top of
Elton John. I got all.
Oh, okay.
But you don't want to go to Wayne Brady right now.
Tom Selleck. Oh, here he is, William Shatner. That other one might not turn out, but this one. Let's see, they're covered.
Dinah Shore, Robin Williams.
Wow, this is too cool. Andrews. Olivia. Oh, Greta Garbo. I mean, how many do you keep taking? I mean, my goodness. About done.
Good Lord of mercy, give me somebody who wants to get out of this rat hole. Let's go to Hollywood, the Hollywood sign. Marilyn Monroe's 2. Beverly Hills.
A lot of blank ones.
Stop. No bus goes.
Where are we going to go?
Look at that, the steroid. That's where when they do the Emmys and all that. That's when they go in through that.
Lynn, can you get a...
Did you already take the
No.
camera?
Keep walking. I was just filming like you were the star.
Can you go all the way up there? And
Little Mexican fast food place here. Take a look at it. Paint those arches golden. That was one of the early McDonald's restaurants. Yeah. Well, the ladies of the evening, I understand politically correct now, they call them nighttime social workers, would be on the sidewalk and the city police would come along and they would step off the sidewalk. Put some nice ones in there. Seeing some Lincolns out of the 30s in there and whatnot. Jimmy Carter looked like he aged, what, 20 or 30 years in his 4-year term? Yeah. Famous for the supposed discovery of an actress by the name of Lana Turner. Remember to tell you the truth on it. A little later we'll get to where she really was discovered. But it was a logical spot because the stars would go there to shop. There was a soda fountain. It's now a Miller Genuine Draft bottle marking the head of the Sunset Strip. For years and years and years it was a Marlboro Man, but he's kind of politically incorrect now. Miyagi's there on the right is supposed to be one of the best places for karaoke. The last of the strip joints out here on the Sunset Strip. The body shop there on our left. We told somebody in the office they had a body shop out here on the strip. They said, oh great, we can send the buses down there and have them detailed while the people up at Universal Studios. So they called up and said, we've got some buses we need detailed. Do you work on buses? They said, no, the people have to come inside. This little store there on the right used to, Cajun Bistro is what it used to be called. If you saw Woody Allen and Annie Hall, they had a meal scene filmed in there. Then Carney's for hot dogs and hamburgers. Not really owned by Art Carney, I found out, but if you saw Superman 2 when he got beaten up by the trucker outside the frame car, that was done here. Then a big change here. We have the Saddle Ranch Chop House coming up on our right. That originally was a Harley Davidson place built by Peter Fonda. Let's go from one end to the other. On the left there at 8358, that's called the Argyle. It's a hotel now as far as I know. It used to be kind of a residential place. Howard Hughes had the penthouse. Expensive. They get very fancy too. Most of them are hand painted though. We've got the big digital screen up here on our left. She's going to be here on Sunday. House of Blues there on the left. Comedy Store is owned by Mitzi Shore. Her son Paulie Shore has done a little bit of work in the movies. I've heard some stuff about it. I'm not too sure. I've never watched any of this stuff. We used to have a really fancy rent-a-car place there. You can get Ferraris and all sorts of stuff there. As we go through this intersection at La Cienega, I want you to take a look out to the left. See just how high up we are from the rest of the city. Beautiful view on a clear night. How many remember 77 Sunset Strip? So Dino's Lodge is gone. It used to be right about in here on our left. That's the driveway where Kooky would stand and wait to park cars, and then the Tiffany Theater, that doorway right there at the end, that was the entrance to the detective's office. No such address as 77 Sunset Strip. I guess it just kind of had a nice rhythmic ring to it. This building on our left used to be a Playboy Club. Let me take a look back over your shoulders. Take a look at the pad on the side there. That is hand painted. Takes them a couple of weeks to do some of those. I've watched them do it. Entering kind of an area known as the Sunset Plaza. A little fancier, it's cafes and boutiques instead of restaurants and stores. Got a lot of sidewalk dining. Chin Chin there on the left, Platadas and further down, Sushia and Le Petit Four. Then you've got Cravings over here on the right. Keep your eyes open, you might see a star. Sometimes they're out there. We might be a little ahead of the lunch crew that's doing lunch, but you never know. You want a nice French restaurant here on the left, Le Dome with the green awnings. Dinners there start around $50 or so per. Michael Jackson used to dine there occasionally. He would bring his own food, his own cooks, and still pay the menu prices. When you've got money, it's called eccentricity. When you don't, they say you're crazy. I think you're crazy anyway. Chef Wolfgang Puck got rid of Spago, closed his Spago Hollywood restaurant here on Sunset. He said it was getting too touristy. Stars weren't coming in and dining there anymore. It was all tourists, so he moved it down to an area where the tourists don't get to. And we can't get there with the buses either, so not having good grounding in certain disciplines. The Whiskey over here on the right was the first of the go-go clubs called the Whiskey A Go-Go. It was there that Goldie Hawn was discovered dancing in a cage above a dance floor by, what was it, Richard Pryor right there. Then a couple more places. I know it's probably not too much for all of us, but the Roxy here on the right, and then the Rainbow Bar and Grill. A couple of popular night spots. The Roxy has an after-hours club upstairs called On the Rocks, and it was there that they say John Belushi had his last meal before his drug overdose. At the Rainbow Bar and Grill, hosted Judy Garland, and of course that's where we got Liza Minnelli. Also, the late great baseball player Joe DiMaggio waited 2 hours for a blind date there. Turned out to be Marilyn Monroe. Then on the darker side, this intersection is Sunset and Topini. This was the intersection. That's the liquor store that somebody ended up in. Injuries, and I guess there were injuries. They could have charged her with a felony, which would have made it much worse. Doheny West Towers here on the right. I understand John Travolta at one time had the penthouse apartment there. Now, this is kind of a dividing street, Doheny is. Take a look on your left. You'll notice telephone poles, yellow fire hydrants, any old kind of tree. That's some of the most expensive housing in West Hollywood. You take a look over here on the right, no telephone poles, evenly spaced stately palm trees. You'll see a silver fire hydrant. This is some of the least expensive housing in Beverly Hills because it faces West Hollywood, partly because the city line actually runs down through the property. These houses are not fully within the city of Beverly Hills. And you take a look, these don't look very outstanding or fancy or anything like that. Would you pay $1 million or so for one of these? Beverly Hills, 90210. Well, we've got an open house there. Anybody want to stop and go in and look at a house? Yeah. Oh, I have a turbos out here. We're looking at, what do you want for it? Get some straight information fast that way. They tell me Marilyn Monroe lived in one of these along here at one time, but I haven't been able to find any verification on that. Supposedly where she and John Kennedy met for an affair. I don't know. There are so many stories out there, it is hard to separate fact from fiction, and they get told so often, it's very difficult to actually find out the truth. But this little fountain here on the right, it's fenced off right now. Looks like they've got to do a big refurbishing job on it. If you saw it down and out in Beverly Hills, that's where Nick Nolte was taking his bath. And then we have the Beverly Hills Shield sign here on the right. Welcome to Beverly Hills. You feel any wealthier? I used to work for a man many years ago who lived here in Beverly Hills, and he told me there were 3 classes of citizens in Beverly Hills. There were those who lived south of Santa Monica Boulevard. That's the area off to our left. He says they would talk to anybody. Then you had the area north of Santa Monica, which is off to our right, but south of Sunset. They would not talk with anybody who lived south of Santa Monica Boulevard. We used to have railroad tracks through here too, and they'd say, which side of the tracks were you on? Then you had the folks that lived north of Sunset. He said they would only talk with God. But that's where you find the really big mansions. Not to say that there aren't some nice ones down here. We used to be able to take these buses through, but if you take a look at each one of these streets, at the end there's a sign there that says commercial vehicles over 3 tons prohibited. Our crazy redhead got us out of there, Lucille Ball. If you remember, many years ago they had the episode, Ricky came to Hollywood. He was having lunch with Richard Whitmark, Lucy's favorite actor. And because of things that had been transpiring, Ricky would not let Lucy go with him. So Lucy and Ethel took a tour of the stars' homes. Found out that they were across from what was supposedly Richard Whitmark's house. Actually, it was Lucy's house. She talked the driver into letting her and Ethel off. They told the usual Lucy antics and such. A few months later, a bus broke down around the corner from Lucy's house. Everybody figured out it was Lucy's house. They went and took the mailbox, the shutters, the shrubbery. She was very upset. She tried all kinds of things, kicking the driver out, kicking the bus company out, kicking buses out. None of that would work. The only thing she could come up with, she got her friends to help lobby the city council for a weight restriction. Keep all the commercial vehicles out. Fine for this vehicle would be somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 if they go to full route. On your left, Beverly Hills City Hall. We just passed the Beverly Hills Police Station. Take a look up at that tower. That is real gold plate. It's not paint. This is Beverly Hills. They can afford the real thing. And the old post office, they've moved it. I'm not sure where it's at. This is the old post office building. It's about the only government building in the country that experimented with valet parking, but people weren't willing to pay $5 to have their car parked, so they could go in and run I think that time it was a 25-cent stamp. Mr. T was stopped right next to us. He had a red Rolls-Royce convertible. Haven't seen him in a long time, though. The hills of Beverly. Okay, are your credit cards starting to twitch and get nervous in your wallets? We're about to make a turn onto Rodeo Drive. Beverly Hills Presbyterian Church there on our right. If you saw 16 Candles with Molly Ringwald, that's where the wedding near the end of the movie was filmed. Seen where she went out to see the guy in the car. I haven't seen the movie. I just got to take it from what I've been told. I understand Liz Taylor's been married there a time or two. Or. Rodeo Drive. Anybody want to go shopping? Oh yeah, I've got one down here. You make your appointment to go in on your clothes shopping. They will have a model there your size so that you don't have to go to all the work of trying on the clothes. Oh yeah. You make that appointment ahead of time. They figure you're going to spend at least $10,000 while you're there. Sorry, ladies, it's a men's clothing store. When we go by, it's Bijan up here. It's the kind of a yellow gold color. I want you to look at the door as we go by. I mean, we've got all these designer labels here. But take a look at the door. The door handle's in the letter. Richard Gere told the guy, take it back to Fred. There's Fred on your right. Fred is a jewelry store. Fred is an exclusive jewelry store. They did a remodel about 3 years ago as well. One of the things they removed, I kind of missed, there was a doorbell there. You wanted to shop, you rang the doorbell. If they recognized you, you went in. If they didn't, they ran a credit check on you while you waited outside. If they did not feel you had enough money to shop there, you didn't go inside. Yeah, you got all your designer labels down here. Giorgio of Beverly Hills, he figures anybody ought to be able to shop on Rodeo Drive, so he doesn't get snooty like they did with Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman. But they do have a tendency, and you'll also notice in the windows, there's no price tags on any of that stuff in the window. Their philosophy, if you have to ask how much, you cannot afford it. Van Cleef and Arpels here on our left, very fine jewelry store. And about whatnot, they ended up, I think one of the security guards was dead, one or two of the robbers was dead. From when they turn is the Regent Beverly Wilshire Hotel. That's where Richard Gere was staying in the movie Pretty Woman. Actually, they only used the exterior in the movie. The interior scenes were done back at the studio. I just got a new Auto Club tour book the other day. You too can stay at the Regent Beverly Wilshire Hotel if you wish. Prices start at $400 a night. Notice I said start at. Anybody want to know what the high one was that I saw in that tour book? For one night, take a guess. The highest price I think they had in there was $7,500 for one night presidential suite. I wouldn't pay the $400. I went and bought myself a trailer. I'd pay about $20 a night. Of course, the trailer wasn't cheap. Dinners in the restaurant there, lunches start around $25. They expect you to be dressed fairly nicely. You don't have to put on a tux or anything, but they be like nice. More banks down here than I've seen anyplace else. Banks I've never heard of anyplace else but Beverly Hills. What was it? They had that country song a few years ago, All the Gold in California is in a bank in Beverly Hills in somebody else's name. There are a few things you cannot do here in Beverly Hills. You cannot be born here. There are no hospitals. You cannot be buried here. There are no cemeteries. And don't get a Big Mac attack. No McDonald's or other fast food restaurants. They feel those only generate trash. They want fine dining only. Got a Chevron gas station. That's all right. They'll come back down a little bit. I'll adjust to it. Yeah, we got the Ferrari left over here. We've got a restaurant called Pete Mancolini. It's a sports type restaurant. She was the first of the ladies to be a boxing promoter. I understand you'll find sports stars doing lunch here periodically. Now, we were trying to figure out one time what the difference is between eating lunch and doing lunch. The only thing we could come up with, eating lunch takes about a half an hour. Doing lunch takes a couple of 3 hours. And we've got another little place for some cars. Years ago, there was a restaurant the stars would go to called Chasen's. And it was always called Chasen's of Beverly Hills, but it was actually just outside Beverly Hills. But they figured, they trade on the name Beverly. When they were going to build it, they went around seeking donations for the new hospital, and they approached a man that was well known as a philanthropist, and he shocked them by saying no, he wasn't going to give them any money. But then he made them a better offer. We've got the Beverly Center coming up here on the right, the Hard Rock Cafe in the corner. If you want to catch Hard Rock Cafe, there's one of the Universal Studios on the city wall. First 5 or 6 levels on this mall are parking garage. It is what we call an upscale mall. You'll find a lot of stores that you saw on Rodeo Drive with locations here as well. Very nice in there. There's a camera store in there I like to stay away from because it's too dangerous for me. where shows like your Price is Right, Jeopardy, a lot of your CBS soap operas are done here. And oftentimes dining at farmers market for lunch, people would go over and help with the buses. It's not so bus friendly anymore with the expansions that they've done. But I've had a lot of people make a comment on a reference of the similarity in the current CD. The record collector here on the right is one of the largest, and they have got a tremendous selection in there. I walked through there one night. I was just wanting to see what they had. I wasn't looking for anything specific, and they were wanting to help me find something. I just want to look. I mean, floor to ceiling stacks and stacks and stacks of records. I've probably got some at home that I'd like to get your hand in. I even have. My dad had some that he got from a cousin of his, the old 1/4 inch thick Victrola recordings on one side only. Yeah. They're still playing. Find them. A lot of used clothing stores down here, but they'll call it vintage clothing because they can charge more with the longer wear. I mean, vintage has, what, 2 syllables? Used is only 1, so double the price. A lot of restaurants around. And there's brick building. They took away some of my fun with this brick building there on the right. There used to be a store called Too Cute. I'd say people got really cute with their names, and some of them got a little too cute. Red Balls, they're up on the City Walk also. Some rather weird clothing. Really neat place to wander too, up here on the left. Off the wall antiques. Sometimes they'll have a big old cow out there in front available. Some strange stuff. The wok experience, contemporary Cajun Chinese. Can anybody tell me what a wok is?